The Lost Boy of Hollow Brook Asylum. It was a cold, overcast afternoon when 13-year-old Jake stood at the gates of the abandoned Hollow Brook Asylum. The iron gates loomed high above him, rusted and twisted from years of neglect. The asylum had been a local legend for as long as he could remember. Rumors of strange noises, shadows moving behind the boarded-up windows, and the occasional dare among schoolkids to go inside. But no one ever did. Until now. Jake had always been curious, and his imagination often got the better of him. The thrill of discovering something no one else had seen was too much to resist. He squeezed through a gap in the gates and walked up the overgrown path, leaves crunching beneath his sneakers. The building itself was massive, with broken windows staring down like empty eyes and ivy creeping up the walls, clawing at the remnants of its former glory. Jake's heart pounded as he approached the main door, a giant wooden thing that hung slightly ajar. He hesitated for a moment, staring into the yawning darkness beyond. Just a quick look, he told himself. In and out. Inside, the air was stale and smelled of mildew and dust. The hallway stretched endlessly in front of him, lined with peeling wallpaper and broken light fixtures dangling precariously from the ceiling. He could hear the distant dripping of water, echoing eerily through the silence. Jake pulled out his flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom as he ventured further inside. As he explored, the asylum seemed to go on forever. Endless corridors leading to empty rooms, some with rusted hospital beds still inside, others with strange, illegible scribbles covering the walls. He stopped in front of a particularly large set of double doors marked Ward C. Curious, he pushed them open with a creak that echoed down the empty halls. This ward was different. The air felt colder, and the silence was thicker, almost oppressive. Jake shivered and pulled his jacket tighter around him as he stepped inside. The room was filled with rows of overturned chairs and old, dusty medical equipment, the remnants of whatever had once taken place here. At the far end of the room, he noticed a small door, half hidden behind a curtain. He walked over and pushed it open. It was a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. Every instinct told him to turn around, to leave the asylum and never look back. But something, curiosity, or perhaps something more sinister, urged him forward. Step by step, he descended into the bowels of the asylum, the only sound his breathing and the soft thud of his shoes on the stone steps. At the bottom, he found himself in a narrow hallway, the walls damp and the air thick with the smell of decay. His flashlight flickered as he moved forward, its weak beam barely penetrating the darkness ahead. He passed old doors with heavy iron bars, their occupants long gone, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Suddenly, a door slammed behind him. Jake spun around, his heart racing. There was no one there, just the oppressive darkness pressing in on him. He laughed nervously, trying to convince himself it was just the wind or his imagination playing tricks on him. But when he tried to retrace his steps, the hallway looked different, the turns unfamiliar. He was sure he had only walked in a straight line, but now it felt like a maze. Panic began to set in. He hurried down the hall, trying door after door, but they were all locked, sealed tight with rusted locks that refused to budge. The flashlight flickered again, then went out completely, plunging him into total darkness. "Come on," Jake muttered, shaking the flashlight in frustration. He hit it a few times, and the beam sputtered back to life, dimmer now. His breath quickened as he realized he was completely disoriented. The walls seemed to close in around him, and no matter which way he turned, every corridor looked the same. Endless, identical stretches of peeling paint and barred doors. Then, out of the silence, he heard it. A faint whisper. It was so soft he almost thought he imagined it. But then it came again, closer this time. Jake froze, his heart hammering in his chest. He swung the flashlight around, but the narrow beam revealed nothing. The whispering grew louder, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to be coming from all around him. "Who's there?" Jake called out, his voice cracking. No answer, just the whispers, growing more frantic, more insistent. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the end of the hall, and Jake's flashlight flickered violently before going out again. He was plunged into darkness once more. His breaths came in ragged gasps as he stumbled forward, feeling his way along the damp. His mind raced, fear overtaking him. He had to get out. He had to find a way out. But the asylum had other plans. As he stumbled blindly through the corridors, he became aware of something following him. He could hear the soft padding of footsteps behind him, getting closer with each passing second. He ran, panic propelling him forward. But no matter how fast he moved, the footsteps stayed right behind him, always just out of sight. Jake turned a corner, his hands scrabbling against the walls as he felt for a door, any door that would lead him out of this nightmare. His fingers found a handle, and he yanked it open, stumbling into a small room. He slammed the door shut behind him and leaned against it, gasping for breath. It was only then that he realized the whispers had stopped. The footsteps were gone. The asylum was silent once again. Jake fumbled with his flashlight, managing to coax it back to life with a dim, sputtering glow. He shone it around the room and froze. He wasn't alone. Sitting in the corner of the room, bathed in shadow, was a figure. It was a boy, about Jake's age, his clothes old and tattered, his skin pale and gaunt. His eyes were wide and hollow, filled with a terror that made Jake's blood run cold. "I've been waiting for you," the boy whispered, his voice raspy, barely audible. "We're trapped. We're all trapped. And we can never leave." Jake stumbled back, his mind reeling. He turned and grabbed the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. He pulled harder, but the door refused to open. Panic surged through him as the boy in the corner began to laugh. A quiet, desperate sound that echoed through the room. "You can try," the boy said, his voice tinged with madness. "But the asylum never lets anyone leave." The flashlight flickered one last time and died, plunging Jake into darkness. And in that darkness, the whispers returned, louder now, surrounding him. He banged on the door, screaming for help, but no one came. The asylum had claimed him, just like it had claimed the others. And from that day forward, Jake was never seen again. Only the faint whispers and soft footsteps could be heard in the depths of Hollow Brook Asylum, where the lost souls wandered endlessly, trapped forever in the dark.